And we are live.
We'll go ahead and move with the call to order. Good evening and welcome to the virtual meeting of the City of Dublin Board of Zoning Appeals. The Ohio legislature passed several emergency laws to address the pandemic, including the ability for public entities to have virtual meetings. For the present time, we are holding our meetings online and live streaming those meetings on YouTube. You can access the live stream on the city's website. In order to submit any questions or comments during the meeting, please use the form under the streaming video on the city's website. These questions and comments will be relayed to the board by the meeting moderator. We want to accommodate public participation to the greatest extent possible and welcome your comments on all cases. Please use a valid name and address when submitting your comments and refrain from making any inappropriate comments. We understand this is not a perfect system, but we will do our best and we appreciate your patience. Our first order of business will be oath of office for our newest board member, Robin Cloer. Vice Mayor, do you want to proceed?
Happy to do that. Thank you so much for having me this evening. Before we do these oath of office, and I understand, Jason, I have to also give you an oath of office.
I think so.
You're reading this evening. Yeah, so we'll do both of those this evening. But before, I just wanted to thank everybody. I know this is an enormous amount of work, and it's very important work. And on behalf of City Council, I sincerely appreciate all of your efforts and all of your hard work. So thank you very much. So maybe, Jason, we'll start with you.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Sure.
Okay. If you will raise your right hand, please, and repeat after me. I state your full name.
I, Jason Deschler,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute
that I will faithfully execute
the duties as a member of
the duties as a member of
the Board of Zoning Appeals
the Board of Zoning Appeals
of the City of Dublin
of the City of Dublin
and will, to the best of my ability,
and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the State of Ohio
and the State of Ohio
and the ordinances and charter
and the ordinances and charter
of the City of Dublin, Ohio.
of the City of Dublin, Ohio.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you. Congratulations, Jason.
Thank you.
Okay, Robin, you could please raise your right hand too. There we go. If you could repeat after me. I, please state your full name.
I, Robinson James Clower,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute
that I will faithfully execute
the duties as a member of
the duties as a member of
the Board of Zoning Appeals
the Board of Zoning Appeals
of the City of Dublin
of the City of Dublin
and will, to the best of my ability,
and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the State of Ohio
and the State of Ohio
and the ordinances and charter
and the ordinances and charter
of the City of Dublin, Ohio.
of the City of Dublin, Ohio.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Vice Mayor DeRosa.
Thank you. You guys have a wonderful meeting tonight.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Appreciate it. Okay, with that order of business completed, why don't we move forward with the roll call, please?
Ms. Herbert? Here. Mr. Deschler?
Here.
Mr. Nye?
Here.
Ms. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Clower?
Here.
Okay, thank you. And then now, since we've had our most recent chair be termed out, we'll have an election of officers both for vice chair and chair. Do we have any motions to elect anyone?
I would like to make a motion, if I may. I would like to nominate Jason for chair and Joe for vice chair.
I second that.
Can we vote, please?
Ms. Herbert,
Yes.
Ms. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Clower,
Yes.
Mr. Nye,
Yes.
Mr. Deschler.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, so proceeding forward, we'll just clarify for the record, obviously. Jason Deschler is me. I'll move, be the chair going forward. And Joe, congratulations, you'll be the vice chair going forward. Thank you very much to my fellow board members. Sarah, appreciate it. And Alicia. All right, let's move to the next order of business, the acceptance of documents and approval of meeting minutes. Do we have a motion to accept the documents onto the record and approve the March 25, 2021 meeting minutes?
I'll move.
A second.
Mr.
Roll,
Nye,
Thank you.
Yes.
Ms. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Clower,
Yes.
Ms. Herbert,
Yes.
Mr. Deschler.
Yes.
Thank you.
Next order of business will be the swearing in of witnesses and staff. And obviously this will apply to anyone else attending to speak tonight. Anyone intending to address the board on its cases this evening, please raise your right hand and answer in the affirmative. So can we have the other individuals that were going to speak? Is that Mr. Johnson? Can you turn on your video, please?
Yes. Can you hear me?
We can definitely hear you. Yes,
Okay.
sir. And then is there anyone else on behalf of, is it Beckman?
Beckman. Ms. Beckman.
Is there anybody here? Maybe I'm not seeing him.
Gary Wachowski will be on shortly.
That's fine. And we can obviously just. I caught somebody. I'm not sure.
Jason, I think we're good.
Okay. All right. It's a massive echo. Okay. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony to this board?
I do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, there we go. Hey, Emily.
Hi.
Hey. Great. All right. Well, let's go ahead and move forward. Mr. Johnson, you'll be the second case this evening. If you turn your video back off, we'd appreciate it. And this is the Beckman residence at 7047 Greenland Place. It's case number 20-219V. Is the applicant present in this case? I think that's Emily. Do you want to pop your camera back on for us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Perfect. All right. So Mr. Hounshell is our presenter on behalf of the city, and we'll let him share his presentation. Zach, do you want to go forward?
Certainly. Can everyone see the full screen here?
Yes, Beck. Thank you.
Perfect.
Let me take her. Turn it around.
Good evening. This is an application for review and determination for a non-use area variance for the Beckman residence. This site is highlighted in yellow on the screen. The subject site is located within the Oak Park development, which is a planned unit development within the city of Dublin in the northwest portion of the city. The site, or the Oak Park development, is located at the intersection of Highland Croy Road and Brand Road and is adjacent to the Dublin Jerome High School. Shown here is a zoomed aerial of the site in consideration. You can see the site is adjacent to a reserve to the south, an open space reserve to the south, which is not able to be built into. Additionally, you can see the requested patio location as per the existing patio on the site. To give a brief history, and this could be found in the statement provided by the applicant In 2012, the applicant did contract a landscape architect to make some improvements for their patio. In 2012, this contractor did submit for a certificate of zoning plan approval to replace an existing patio on the site, and they were approved for this application. We do have record of this as well in our systems. However, I do not have a specific record of the certificate of zoning plan approval, but it is within our systems. However, with this submittal in our research, staff has not been able to find a site plan for this patio to show exactly what was specifically approved in 2012. So earlier in 2020, staff was notified of multiple patios within the Oak Park development that did not meet the regulations of the Oak Park development text. And although there is a permit that was approved to replace the previous patio for this site, the location of the existing patio does require a variance to the rear yard setback because it does encroach within that required setback. So shown on the screen is the proposed site plan for this property. As stated, this is located within the planned unit development district of Oak Park. The variance request is to the development text subarea A for park homes, section 3C, and they are requesting a 5-foot 3-inch encroachment into the 20-foot setback for patios. Shown on the screen, in green is the existing patio for this site, and in red is the buildable area that does not require a variance. Patios are allowed 20 feet, are required to meet a 20-foot setback from the rear property line. This would allow, based on where the home sits and where this buildable area is, it would allow for approximately 6 feet to the rear of the home to develop any outdoor amenities. However, this existing patio does encroach the 5-foot 3 inches into that setback. The applicant has provided a statement identifying how the request addresses the criteria. The applicant states that when they contracted with the landscape architect in 2012, it was their understanding that the contractor had followed all necessary requirements and obtained all applicable permits. It was not until they received a letter from the city of Dublin in October of 2020 that the applicant was informed of their illegal patio. The applicant has also stated that the location of the patio was cleared by the Oak Park development in 2012, and the patio does not impair the green space to the south of the property. And shown on the screen is an existing condition of this site. You can see this is the rear of the home. And further back, you can see the reserve space with the taller grass and vegetation. The edge of the home is at 25 feet to the rear property line. So you can see this patio does extend past that 20 feet. Planning staff has reviewed this application to all applicable criteria. Staff in their analysis did find that the site is adjacent to a reserve space that prohibits development to the rear of the site. Additionally, with the siting of the home, it allows for very limited space to develop to the rear of this home that meets the development text. Additionally, the location of the home, it does eliminate any permissible outdoor amenity space, as we've seen in many other cases of these Oak Park variances in the past. Planning staff is recommending approval of this non-use area variance to the development text for the 5-foot 3-inch encroachment. If any of the board members have questions for staff, I would be happy to answer them. Otherwise, Ms. Beckman is with us tonight to address any questions you may have for the applicant. Thank you.
Thanks, Zach. Any of our board members have any questions for Zach?
Yeah. I just had a question. Can you guys, first of all, can you hear me? Because I had to go to my phone.
We hear you.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. Did I catch that you do have record in your system that somebody applied for a permit, you just don't have the site plan? Do you think that's maybe because it was, I don't know, maybe it was subject to your records retention and you guys have just kind of got rid of that particular piece of paper, or
Yeah,
is that
so
typical, I guess?
yeah, within our systems, we do, back in 2012, the certificate of zoning plan approval was something that our building standards department handled. Currently, the certificate of zoning plan approval is handled by the planning department. So, you know, typically we do require a site plan, even if an existing or patio were to just be repaved, or if they were placing new concrete. However, we don't have that with this old permit, but we do have record that the contractor that the applicant had went with, they did receive an approved permit. We just don't. The patio was expanded beyond what was existing, and we didn't find that till 2020.
Do you have any idea, real quick? This is off of Sarah's question, of what was actually submitted for approval?
So all we have been able to find is just the permit application itself and the approved permit application and its application number. So that's what we have on file. That's what our team has been able to find. It's just the site plan has not been able to be identified. So we can't speak to whether that was submitted back then or not. It was just our understanding that they were replacing an existing patio within its bounds.
And
So Zach, just so I'm sure because I'm not sure I completely understand this. So that means you don't know the exact dimensions that were approved, but that there was one approved.
Correct.
Okay. So this could have been approved for something that would actually fit within the property line, and then the builder just said, I'm going to build a bigger one. Or it could have matched exactly to what this was. We just don't know.
It matched.
Okay,
Correct.
thanks.
Sarah, did you have anything else for Zach?
No, I did not.
Zach, does the patio only encroach backwards based on the Oak Park development standards or also city standards?
So this would default to the Oak Park development standards. The Oak Park development standards are alternate from the city standards. So the city standards would not apply in this case.
well, just to clarify, Zach, if the development text is approved, that is the zoning text. So it's kind of an apples to apples comparison. But I will say that patios have been a tricky subject for the city of Dublin. It's in the early 2000s, we actually didn't even review permits for them. And at some point, because of zoning restrictions, we decided to do that. So our record retention is slightly amiss, but we're trying to do the best we can to ensure that development standards are met.
Do we have any other questions for staff?
See, his hair is orange.
Okay. Okay, so Emily, do you want to go ahead and give us the background on this? Do you want to provide some commentary on your application?
I think it pretty much is kind of what he said. We applied for permits through Dublin. We hired a reputable contractor. We were told everything was fine. And, that was 8 or 9 years ago now. So we're a little surprised to find that this was even an issue.
Yes.
We haven't had any issues with, any kind of city, things back there or we haven't had any problems whatsoever. So, I'm not totally sure what else to add other than what I put in the plan and what he's already stated.
Sure. I just wanted to make sure that, obviously your application is on record, and then you provided a statement, which we all reviewed. I didn't know if there was any other detail that you had wanted to provide, perhaps that Zach didn't account for. If there's anything additional, please feel free to share.
I can't think of, anything else other than, what I've provided.
Okay. No, that's okay. Would any of my fellow board members like to have any questions for Ms. Beckman?
Yeah, Emily, how are you today?
Question.
Good, how are you?
Good. The biggest factor that I think in the analysis that we're going to have to deal with is the applicant action or inaction. And obviously we've heard from the city their attempt to try to obtain these records. Did you do anything to try to obtain a copy of this approval? Did you contact the builder?
Yes, we did. We did
Okay, when did you
contact the builder, but it's been so long ago, they don't have record of, they did apply for a permit. you know, and if I had known that this was even like an issue later, I probably would have requested a copy.
Gave them a permit.
Yeah, we
They don't
did.
have record because it was 8 years ago.
Right. But yeah, they did get a permit. They just don't have record of it anymore because it's been so long. But we did try to contact them, and I believe we gave that, like, I'm not even sure who else I spoke to.
Now, Bob. Peter Symes from Symes Landscape, and they know him well.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Does the proposal that we were provided, the one from 2012, does that match with, obviously that would match with what they would have if they had anything. But
Yeah, we just took photocopies of everything that they submitted to Dublin. There was no other renderings. We
It
didn't,
was built exactly the way.
Yeah.
they approved.
and I think we emailed everything as well, like all the plans from 2012 to, I guess it's Zach, I'm not sure. But I think we did email those over.
You had indicated too that you obviously it was your understanding that the contractor had the obligation to get the permits, and there is some evidence of that based on the application they made. Just curious, was there a contract that you submitted along with that? I don't know if I saw it in the materials.
A contract that we,
You know, like between you and, was it the landscaping company Symes?
we use Symes.
Symes.
I don't,
We signed it.
I mean, everything that I have from 2012, we sent to you.
Sure, no problem. I was just curious if you recall there was a contract or not. That's fine. You may not have it. It might be gone. It's okay. So I'm just curious.
Yeah, but I believe that we did, and we sent it over, like the proposals. You know, these are copies that we were given back then. So, and I think this is what we sent over.
Okay. Do we have any other questions?
Or layouts?
sorry.
And was there a picture, or there's no
Yeah.
site drawings or anything that they gave you when they didn't do like a layout drawing when they
We
gave to you?
we did a layout drawings, and we sent it.
Exactly. What
Yeah,
I
we
wanted.
sent it over.
It's all-
Joe, are you pondering another question?
No, I'm just not seeing, I saw what we were just shared there, the contract, but I didn't see a drawing. It looks like they would have submitted with it.
if you scroll down on that page, or if Zach, if you're sharing, if you could scroll down, you can see the layout drawing.
Oh.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I don't see any reference to them getting the approval in there. I thought maybe they would write something in it. It would be helpful, but
Yeah.
I mean, just having looked at a lot of these contracts in my professional life, and actually a lot of work I'm doing now in my house or contemplating doing, I think it's typical, at least from my experience, to see that the contractor is responsible for a permit.
Generally.
Unless you specifically, unless you specifically, you know, and then you're responsible for contacting your HOA. I know a lot of them don't want to go through that rigmarole. So the homeowner does that. And it looks like from the evidence from the city that is borne out to some extent, because they do have some record of being contacted.
Right.
You know, I know, Robin, you're new to the BZA, but we're kind of pros here on the Oak Park subdivision and kind of the issues they're having over there. And with patios, and you know, I'm heartened at least that Ms. Beckman, that you guys actually tried to go through the process and get an approval, and you did get some approval. So I would agree with the city and their assessment, and I am inclined to approve.
Let's do this first. Is there any other questions? Thank you, Sarah. Is there any other questions for Ms. Beckman before we move on to any public comment may be available? Okay. Do we have any public comment that has come in, whether before or during the presentation?
We do not.
Okay. So going back to our board discussion, Sarah's in favor. I'm honestly, just to speak freely, I'm inclined to agree with Sarah. You know, it frankly sounds like there was an approval. We don't know what that approval was for. There was, you know, for what was submitted based on a records retention piece, there wasn't rejected. So that's where I'm at now. Joe, Alicia, Robin, do you have any thoughts, opinions?
We're orange, but that's okay.
It seems like a very unlucky situation for you that you went through what you assumed to be the full process and then received a wake-up call 8 years later. So I'm not.
We were confused.
I'm not inclined to make you tear down your patio for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, obviously
I
we've been
agree.
through this numerous times. We're back to the spot as before. I don't see that. I look at it both ways. There's not sufficient proof to me that they caused this, and there's not sufficient proof that they got the approval. But it certainly looks like there's best efforts, and they've given us some proof that that process was done, and I think that's sufficient for me.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve a variance to the Oak Park Development Text Sub-Area A, Park Homes, Section 3C, to permit an at-grade patio to encroach 5 feet 3 inches onto the 20-foot rear yard setback for patios?
I so move. Then I will second.
Roll, please.
Ms. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Clower,
Yes.
Mr. Knight,
Yes.
Ms. Herbert,
Yes.
Mr. Deschler.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Well, Emily, Ms. Beckman, you are good to go. So this has been approved. So
All right.
thanks so much. Have a good evening.
All right. Thanks. Thank you.
Okay. We'll move on to our case 2. This is the Wilkowski residence. Case number 21-047V. The applicant, I believe, both who's on, I think, is it Mr. Johnson, perhaps? I know
Yes,
that.
I'm on here now.
Okay, and then I see Jerry is.
Gary Wachowski should
Gary,
be
that's
on here
right.
too.
I think so. The presenter for the city is Ms. Noble, and let's let her go forward with her presentation, and then Mr. Johnson will move on to you after we have an opportunity to have Tammy present, and then we will have some questions for her.
Thank you, Mr. Deschler, and I just want to congratulate you on your new appointment. So we will be working together for a couple more years.
Yes, thank you.
She's showing a PowerPoint.
Okay, thank you. So the application before the board tonight is a variance application. This is actually an application that we don't hear about most often, but it's a variance application to deal with the total side yard setback for a property that's zoned R1. You can see the site located to the west side of Riverside Drive. It's approximately an acre, slightly less than an acre, zoned R1. It's, again, on the west side of Riverside Drive, just north of Tonti Drive. These are typically larger lots along the riverside. And you can see the 2 adjacent suburban communities. Donegal Cliffs is to the west, and Wyandotte Woods is to the north. This is a closer view of the site. Again, it's a slightly smaller parcel of land located on the east side of the river. You can see the orientation of the house is slightly to the north part of the property, adjacent to the neighbor to the north. It has about 97 feet, 98 feet, we're estimating based on GIS of width. So it is again, a smaller lot with a narrow characteristic to it. There are some natural features that we'll talk about here in just a moment. The applicant is proposing to construct an 898 square foot garage to the house. The existing site does not have either a basement nor a garage. So the applicant is attempting to construct something to the southern part of the property that would, of course, provide not only storage for vehicles, but storage for other items in lieu of a basement. The site does have floodplain, this is indicative of lots along the river. You can see the floodplain, the yellow line that you see is the starting of the floodplain that's just to the rear of the property. These are different categories of floodplain, but the red and blue portions of the floodplain are restricted in terms of building. To the right, you'll see topography that we've described in the report. There are significant property changes, not only to the rear, but also to the front of the property. Just slightly less than 20 feet of grade change, but significant. And we'll show you a couple of pictures of the site that show how those impact the site. So the applicant is proposing, like I said, a two-story, 898 square foot garage to the southern portion of the property. At the smallest portion of the site, the setback will be 8 feet. At the largest point, it will increase as it moves towards Riverside Drive. The red portion of this area shows what they would actually be permitted if they were to meet zoning code approval. So there is significant limitations to what they could build under code. So we've highlighted some of those issues in our report. In terms of pictures, we had heard from the board that you wanted us to provide more information about the sites as they exist. And so we've attempted to do that through this process. This is actually the existing driveway located along Riverside Drive. You see the one-story house to your right, pretty much where the truck is parked is where the proposed garage is to be located. And then you'll see here in just a moment, just beyond that tree is where the grade changes fairly significantly. This is looking, we're basically standing in the middle of the property, looking towards the driveway that we just saw. Just essentially orienting you to the house as it exists and the property, the adjacent property that's most impacted by this particular request. Again, the property or the house that exists now is a single story, pretty much a stucco house, and they are proposing a two-story garage just past where you could see pretty much the yellow bush. So in terms of conditions for the site, we do believe there are special considerations for the site. First and foremost, this is a very small lot for this particular area of the city, as well as a very narrow lot for the city. It also has floodplain issues and mature vegetation to the forefront of the property. So it's severely restricting the applicant's ability to construct in other portions of the property. The site was developed in the early 1950s, far well before the applicant owned the property. So the conditions of the site are not construed as they're doing. And as far as intent and purpose of the requirement, the purpose of the variance process is to allow the applicant to have considerations if there are significant impacts to the request. In this particular application, we do believe that the site is located fairly significantly distanced from the adjacent home. Currently, it's 80 feet, and we will place a caveat to that condition that that's as the site exists today. But there is vegetation, and we've worked with the applicant to agree to additional vegetation to address concerns from the property owner from the south. In terms of special privileges of the application, again, the applicant, the house does not have a garage nor a basement. The previous garage was converted at some point before the applicant had purchased the property. So they have significant storage issues for the site. So we do believe that those are basic amenities that you would expect with a residential property. So we would like to work with the applicant to address their needs for the site. In terms of recurrent in nature, we've not had applications similar to this request. We did do some research. There was one within the last several years, so it's very rare that we hear this request. It does not impact governmental services. In terms of other methods available to the applicant, we've researched, and as well as the applicant has researched, other avenues to pursue a garage for the site, and we simply haven't came up with an option that's feasible for the property. We are recommending approval for the application. This is specifically to zoning code 153.020 to encroach in the total side yard of 25 feet. Since the report has been published to the commission as well as the public, we did receive a comment from the property owner to the south. She is concerned about the proximity to her home in terms of the proposed garage. And she's also requesting actually two things. One, that there be additional vegetation that's provided along the property line to address the somewhat blank wall, if you will, of the proposed garage, as well as she's requesting that the setback requirement be increased to 9 feet. At the time that we wrote the report, we did believe her inquiries to be just simply what is being proposed, but we've worked with her since, and these are the requirements that she's asking the board to consider. So with that, I'll answer any questions of the board, and I know, again, the applicant and the architect are with us tonight to discuss this.
Thank you, Ms. Noble. Do we have any questions, board, for Tammy?
So the southern property owner who is not here, correct?
Right.
Okay. So she's requesting that 2 feet 4 inches be knocked off this garage. Variance, right? She's asking for 11 feet 4 inches.
No, she's asking for an additional foot.
She's asking for additional foot. What's the purpose for that?
You know, I did talk to her at great length, and I think her objective is to obtain the most amount of space separation that she can. She originally had asked there be a 10-foot separation, and then she reduced that to 9 feet. But she feels, I think her biggest concern, and I feel slightly at a disadvantage to relay her comments, but I think her biggest concern is that it's a 2-story addition, and she feels like that mass of a facade is going to be impactful to her property. So she's just trying to maximize the distance.
I guess 12. She thinks 12 inches will be is going to be meaningful, and it appears that her house is on really the southern portion of her property. I
That's
don't know if she
correct.
has two parcels or what. At 7741, that looks blank when I'm looking on here. But, you know, I mean, we have someone who's smushed on this parcel, and then she's to the south of her parcel, right?
Yeah, it's a
So-
very unusual.
Okay. Pictures, thank you.
Yeah, so it is a very unusual configuration.
So I recognize the
Okay.
fact that the garage would probably be unfeasible on the back side of the house, like kind of where that corner is, where the patio is. Were there any considerations made towards having a single-story garage and adding that area into the house as a storage area?
Yeah, I would say, so the area to the along Riverside Drive is very vegetated, so we would want to probably, well, not probably, we would want to not impact the vegetation that exists. The one area of the site that we really considered is the northern part of the lot, just north of the driveway. I don't know if you guys can see my cursor, but so the very northern part of the house. But the difficult part of that is the existing interior space is a bedroom. So when you connect a bedroom to a garage, there can be some issues with ventilation and egress. So we're assessing that could very well be a building permit issue. So they may very well get through zoning, but they would get held up at the building permit stage. So I honestly, we've tried to find a location that would work better. And just based on the constraints of the site, we just haven't been successful. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, well, were there considerations at all, instead of making it a two-story garage, to make it a single-story garage, but add on additional storage elsewhere in the house?
Oh, that's an excellent question. I would have to defer to the applicant for that.
Hi, this is Gary Wachowski. So,
Hey Gary, hang tight a second. We'll give you an opportunity.
Sure. That's
Robin,
sorry.
hold your
I should
question.
know this.
No, you're good. Just hold your question. Joe, Sarah, Alicia, do you have any other questions for Tammy?
No, I do not.
So is there any restriction or guidance for that area or that type of property on adding the second story? Or is that permitted? As long as we hit whatever variance that we agree to, that's fine.
Yeah, it's permitted. There's a maximum height that you can have. It is slightly awkward, I will tell you, just looking at the building, it you know, it's slightly awkward, but there is no zoning restrictions that would prohibit it.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Tammy, do we have a front elevation proposed look at what it would look like from the front of what the new garage would look like if it was accepted and approved?
We don't have elevations, which are not typically required for a variance. So, no, we don't.
Yeah, I just wanted to see kind of a follow-up to what Alicia was saying about the big garage and then the
Right.
house from that perspective. So,
Do you know
Yeah.
the height differential between the existing residence and the top of the garage?
I mean, I can estimate. Robert, I'll let you follow with me, but the typical floor plan, the floor is probably 11 to 12 feet at tops. I mean, I'm going the most conservative number I can get. So if you times 2 is 24. So it's going to be a significant change to the existing building. Robert, do you have anything to add to that? I don't want to misspeak.
Yes, if I'm allowed to speak.
1 second. So let's make sure. Do we have any other questions for Tammy before we move on for the applicant? And obviously, we can come back. This is not we can come back to Tammy. Okay. Robert, you want to go ahead then?
Okay, just to answer the question about the 2-story, is that what you're looking for?
If you want to move forward with that, since that's pending, and then you can move into your presentation if you have, if you want to speak on that right after.
Okay. Yeah, a couple things from what you said. We've been working on this since last summer with the City of Dublin on where the best location was for this garage. And like Tammy said, we tried various options on the site. The back of the house is floodplain, grade change, so you can't do that. We even opted to try to move it in front of the residence, but again, zoning restrictions, you cannot have a garage in front of a residence. So that, freestanding, which we could have moved away from the site, the site area there, but again, that was restrictive. So we always kept coming back to where the cars are parked right now is the best place to have the garage, because you can come out of that garage, go right into there's a mud room, and then right into the kitchen. So it just makes the most sense to have it there. We originally started with Dublin with a 3-foot setback, but that was kind of shot down, and we kind of agreed, yeah, that would have been ideal to get Gary's cars in the garage. So we went to 8 feet, and 8 feet is the bare minimum we can do to get his automobiles inside this garage and have some storage space above. The 2-story, I don't have a problem with. Haven't done any elevations yet because we didn't know how this variance was going to be impacted, but I've completed a lot of additions, and the addition will not look like an addition. It'll look like it was always been there, part of the house. I know you've heard that before, but I've done a lot of work, and it can happen. So we tried other locations, and I think too, the new owners bought this house as their last house. They're both in their 70s, so it's been a brutal winter for them to park outside and walk groceries into the house with both of them. So it's kind of a safety issue that we have a garage that they can pull into, unload their groceries, and go right into the house. And this is going to be their, like I said, this is their forever house. They don't want to move any place else. And they definitely need a garage.
Is that temporary structure coming down? When they build this garage, will they take down the temporary structure that I saw in the photos?
Yeah, that's just a temporary, just again, to get them out of the weather so they can actually do, unload groceries or whatever to before they get in the house.
Yep.
And we also
give them credit for trying it.
We also looked at putting the garage right on the front of the house, but there's bedrooms there. So then, yeah, you'd get a garage, but then you knock out the egress windows for your bedroom. So we just keep coming back to this location, and it just seems to be the best location. And Gary, the owner, has also agreed to put up double row of 6-foot, because that's all you can get, 6-foot arborvitaes along that whole side, and those will eventually grow, probably 12, 16 feet high. That will pretty much cover that whole side of the house. There's not going to be any windows or anything on that side of the house, so and right now with the vegetation, it's grown. You can stand where the garage is, and you can just barely see the neighbor's house. There's so much vegetation there now, so it's not there. We don't have a picture going that way, but it's very difficult to see that house because it's 80 feet away. And I'm looking. I know she she wants 9 feet. But I tell you, that 1 foot inside the garage makes a world of difference for Gary. So if she's 80 feet away or 81 feet away, to me, I don't see a lot of difference there as long as we do the planning and that type thing. I don't know. Do you have anything to add, Gary? Are you on here?
Yes, I'm on. So,
Hey, Gary,
we are-
hang tight. Hey, Gary, since you were on at the beginning,
Sure.
I'm not happy to have you speak, and we welcome the opportunity to listen to you speak. Let me swear you in. Okay, let me do that real quick. Are you
Sure.
ready? Okay. So why don't you raise your right hand for me and answer in the affirmative? Do you, and I'm assuming, 'cause I don't think you have your camera on, but we'll listen. It's
Yes,
okay.
I do.
Okay. Okay. Do you swear or you ready? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony to this board?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Why don't you go ahead and add on to what your architect had said?
Okay. So we agreed with Jackie, she's the neighbor to the south, about putting in some arborvitae trees, giant emerald green. And actually, I'm putting a double row of them in the front of the house, right, within the next 2 weeks, which will help cut down traffic noise and traffic visibility for both of us. But these arborvitaes, they grow actually to 22 feet in height. So they'll really cover most of the bottom of the garage. And if you really saw the lot in between the two properties, there's an awful lot of large trees there. So in the summertime, I can't actually see through the leaves of all the trees and see her property. It's only in the wintertime when the leaves come off the trees. And the region between the two properties is actually a ravine where nobody would ever want to build anyways, because of geographically, it just isn't suitable for doing that. So that's my main comment there. As to an earlier question, did we ever consider building one-story area or one-story garage plus another area for the storage? And I got to say, no, I really haven't, because we were struggling with what area we could even build a garage on.
And again, I don't think, Gary, there's no place we can build a storage that would be probably behind the garage, where you would have a very elongated structure that would look worse than a two-way. I mean, look way out of place.
So looking at the Zillow listings, the reason I asked the question was it's right next to the chimney. There's that area that I think the backside of it used to be the garage. And then it would be, if you kind of extended the proposed garage just back and like tucked it next to the house. I am having a hard time illustrating this, but you would be able to potentially have a fair amount of storage area on the same level as the rest of the house.
Well, if you look at that, the way the house is situated on the lot, it's not parallel to the property lines. So as you go back, your trapezoid just goes to nothing. So you can't really get a lot of area there. And the other thing is, we want a overhead door, or at least double doors on the back of the garage for Gary's lawnmower, so he can get down and mow the back. If we block that off, there's no way to get equipment to mow anything on the back side of his house. Because on the other side, it's like, if you looked at the site plan, it's only 5 or 6 feet away, and it's planted so you can't get equipment that's down that side. So there's just a lot of restrictions to this house. And like I said, we've been working with zoning, and we've tried all kinds of things to get this in there, and this seems to be the best solution that we've come up with.
Hey,
Yeah,
Ryan, go ahead, Joe. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I think in reviewing, I think the city did a really good job, and I really appreciate the photographs that we have this time. It's very helpful. It seems like there's been a lot of effort put into trying to find alternatives, and just reviewing the criteria again. I have to agree with the staff that, you know, I would be in favor of granting this and recommending approval.
I agree with that as well.
And I likewise agree. I have quite a bit of familiarity with not your neighbor, Gary, but the one directly north of your northern neighbor. This backyard area, these properties are very, very steep. So putting anything onto the back of this house, if it's anything like that house, which is not that far away, would be a real challenge. I think you guys have done a great job here of trying to take into consideration all the unique characteristics of these properties that sit along Riverside. I think probably each one of them are quirky and unique, at least given my experience with a few of them, and I would be inclined to approve. I also don't think one foot of difference is going to make much difference to the southern property owner, provided that's what, you know, provided that's her issue. She hasn't shown up or provided any written statement. So I'm going to, I don't find any of that persuasive, but it means a big difference when you're putting on an addition. So she has quite a bit of buffer now as it is. This is pretty thick vegetation, and you're putting even more, which I think is really great. So again, I would approve this variance.
So Sarah,
I appreciate that as well. The addition of the 2 rows of the arborvitae, I think that's a really, you know, that's a really reasonable way to try to be, you know, be a good neighbor and work a way out of this. And I don't think you're right. I don't see how 1 foot's going to make a difference to her. And I think 1 foot sounds like her Mr. Johnson would make a difference to the homeowner. So that wasn't persuasive to me either.
so I'm remiss. We did get a response from the neighbor, and I do need to read that into the record, and it summarizes what we've talked about. But again, I should read it verbatim, if you don't mind.
Please do,
Jason.
Tammy. Thank you. Yes.
So it says, as next door neighbors at 7775 Riverside Drive for 60 plus years, we fondly refer to this part of Dublin as rural residential. We empathize with our neighbors regarding a garage. However, it's unfortunate that they did not realize the code restrictions. We are willing to compromise side setback of 9 feet instead of 10 feet, knowing they would like 8 feet, with the understanding that the variance applies to the garage only and does not extend up to Riverside Drive or down the river. Second comment is the height of the garage will hopefully be no higher than the average garage, with a second floor garage blended with a roof line as indicated, with no modifications. The third point, since the garage will be one large neutral color structure with no windows, evergreen screening would be essential, which the applicant has agreed to. So what I might say is, thank you, Sarah, so much for reminding me to read that into the record, but we may very well want to condition the application that additional vegetation is provided to that property line to provide screening for the neighbor.
And I guess for the applicant, what were you going to plant, say, or what were you proposing? Was it 6 additional? Can you, I think it was Mr. Johnson that's the editor, Mr. Wilkowski, what was it, 6 additional trees? Did I hear that correctly?
So what we would do is we would plant along the side of the garage, it only needs a single row of arborvitaes. The arborvitaes have about a 3 to 6 foot diameter when they're fully mature. so that we would plant them with the appropriate spacing so that when they're mature, the garage would be hidden. The ones I'm planting right now are the 5 to 6 foot height, which is a really big one to start with. And we'll do likewise for along the garage.
Yeah, Sarah, we've actually recommended arborvitaes because they're really narrow. They have they're very dense, and they don't have a big root system to them. So the limited space that they're working with will do well.
So the condition would be a single row of arborvitaes along the southern edge of the property?
Correct.
And I'd like to say that the single row I feel like is probably what you would want to go with. I know something mentioned or somebody mentioned a double row earlier, but with only 8 feet between there, a double row would probably mean that in order to walk back around your house without going through the garage, you would probably have to be encroaching into their property line with how wide the trees would be. So a single row is probably much more ideal.
Right.
Yeah, real quick here. I don't know. It hasn't been asked. Mr. Johnson, look, we have the public comment. They want you to reduce what you're asking for. Are you saying that that's not possible?
Well, we're very narrow in there now, probably too tight. And 1 foot is a lot of room when you're parking 2 cars side by side and just maneuver around the cars and that type thing. So to me, that extra foot is very good real estate for the garage. And for her, like I'm saying, between 80 and 81 feet, if she's standing at her garage, there's no way she's going to tell the difference in 1 foot. And then we maintain the 8 feet, which is, the code requirement for one side of the property. And we get to maximize our garage area.
Yeah, and look, I totally understand. I just want to be clear. At this time, you're not willing to consider that request from the owner of the home to the south.
Gary can answer this too, but I would say no, because we want to try to maintain the 8 feet. We're going to plant the vegetation, and we've tried to work with her in actually even buying a strip of property. We approached her on
Right.
that. She was very conducive to that at first, and then she decided not to. So we've been down this path for 6 months, and I think we've come up with a very logical plan. And to squeeze it down even more, boy, that 1 foot is a lot in that garage, especially as you can see, it narrows back and just kind of disappears. So it's very good real estate inside this garage. It would be kind of detrimental to take a foot out of there, because then maybe instead of a 3-car garage, it's only a 2-car garage.
And Jason, I'd like to say, when you ask if they're not willing to consider it, I think from Mr. Johnson, it sounds to me like it's been over considered. It's been considered, they've done, and I think that's what you're asking, but I just want to state for my consideration in this, it seems like they've done whatever they could to try to work with the homeowner, revise plans, work with the city. And so I appreciate that out of them taking into consideration what their neighbors said. And I do agree that I think that 1 foot is substantial to one neighbor. And I can't say that from 80 foot away, I'd be able to tell you if something was 80 or 81 feet away.
Yeah, I'm not making any decision based on it. I'll be honest with you, I want a clear record. I just want to hear that the homeowner has acknowledged it. The applicant has acknowledged it and rejected it because we had the public comment. That's what I want to hear.
Yeah, and like I say, we've worked with the Dublin zoning. They've been very good. We've been working at different areas of this, and I think Tammy's even talked to this property owner, and we've tried to do everything we can. And we're down to this last step.
I think you're going to be okay, honestly. Again, this is, I don't know how to get it straight here. It's a yes or no. It's either we don't want to consider it because we just had the first time we had a public comment on the record from the homeowner. I appreciate that everything that you've done beforehand, probably countless hours of time and consideration with her to try to figure it out. We totally understand that. We appreciate it. But since we had the public comment, it's been read into the record. There's an ask for consideration. I need you to acknowledge the consideration and then either accept it or reject it for our ability to make a ruling on this.
Yeah, we acknowledge that she has made that comment, and we were kind of taken back that it's taken her this long to say something like that this is what she wants, because she's never said that before. And so we were kind of, what do we do? Where do we go from here? Because we're kind of set with this plan. So I think at this point, late in the game, we want to stay with the 8-foot setback, and we acknowledge her comments, and we'll try to plant the trees and do the best job we can to shelter her from this new addition.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. We appreciate it. So just want to make sure I understand from a board discussion perspective.
I agree.
I know that we have, Joe, Sarah, Alicia, it sounds you're on board with the only condition being the arborvitae. Is that fair?
Yeah, single row of arborvitae on the southern end along the garage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Robin, how are you feeling?
I agree. One of my initial thoughts was, in addition to the arborvitae, she's having a problem with the large mono-sized wall. So I was like, oh, maybe you should put a window on the second floor. But then I was like, she probably wouldn't like a window facing her house any more than she likes a single wall. So I think the plants are a good compromise.
Yeah, we thought of that too, Robin.
Yeah.
I did too. Thank you, though. You
All right,
have
sounds like
great
we're ready to
comments,
vote.
Robin.
Thanks.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir.
Oh, I said, it sounds like we're ready to vote.
I think so. Let me see here. So do we have a motion for variance to zoning code 153.020, section C3, to allow an attached garage to deviate 11 feet 4 inches from the required 25-foot total for a side yard, with the condition being a single row of vegetation in the form of arborvitae, where from a mature perspective, it'll be somewhere in the 22 to 24 feet.
I so move.
I second.
Ms.
Roll,
Miller,
please.
Yes.
Mr. Nye,
Yes.
Mr. Deschler,
Yes.
Ms. Herbert,
Yes.
Mr. Clower.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson and Mr. Wilkowski. We appreciate your time, and it definitely sounds like a lot of effort going into this. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. It's been
Thank
a
you very much.
long road, and I think we came to a great conclusion.
Wonderful. So next, some training.
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jesse Shamp. I'm with the law department. I work with Jennifer Radler and Thad Boggs. Thanks for having me tonight. I appreciate it. I have a slideshow for you. Don't ask me how, but I have avoided doing an electronic presentation since the beginning of the plague. So allow me to try and share my screen right now, and we'll get that up and get it going here.
Jesse, I share your frustration. I swear I've had 3 meetings this week, and every time it's a button, you push a button and it still goes wrong.
Right. It should not be hard. So let's see. Share that. Sharing. And let's see. Everyone seeing that now?
Yes.
We are.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you. As I said, my name is Jesse Shamp. Feel free to stop me with any questions. We'll also have some time at the end for questions. And I work with our law department. As you can see, Thad was planning to cover tonight, but he couldn't, so I've been called in to pinch hit. Happy to do that. Wanted to go over just some few of the general areas that the BZA sees and some of the legal concerns that we have just generally as a law department. I think generally this board is run fantastically well, especially in comparison to some of the other boards I work with elsewhere around the state. So you generally know what's going on. Whenever there's new members, we just like to give a brief overview. So we're going to walk through your general authority as a board, the difference between administrative and legislative bodies, and some open meetings and public records law, and wrap up with some ethics laws. As you probably know, the authority for this board comes from the Dublin City Charter and the codified ordinances, specifically section 153.231. The purpose of the BZA is to provide a means of interpretation of the zoning code, applying adequate but controlled flexibility in the application of the chapter, and to secure the public health, safety, and welfare of the residents of the city. In other words, we're here to be flexible when we can. The board reviews administrative appeals from orders, requirements, decisions, or determinations where it's alleged by the appellant that there is an error or misinterpretation. It reviews variances, just like the two cases you heard tonight, construction appeals from the Division of Building Standards, stream corridor protection zone appeals for the engineering division, and decisions related to non-conforming uses. Generally, the board is one of administrative action as opposed to legislative. And what
Can
that
I pause
means
you real
is
quick, Jesse?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Mr. Wilkowski, you are welcome to leave the meeting. You don't have to sit through this if you're still on. Okay. Go ahead. Thank you.
Excellent. So the board is one of administrative action as opposed to legislative. And what that means essentially is that the board itself is not passing or creating any new laws. It is applying the existing laws of the city. As an administrative board, we're still required by the US and Ohio constitutions to provide procedural due process. And as you probably know, that means that there's notice to applicants as well as those affected by any decision, and a meaningful opportunity to be heard, which is why we have public hearings like tonight. The appeals process on a BZA board is known as a quasi-judicial process. It's certainly not the formal judicial process of a courtroom, but we do require that testimony be given under oath, that any applicants or witnesses against an application have the opportunity to be cross-examined. We then want to apply the facts developed in the hearing to the words in the code, which the slide shows that staff prepares every month to do that. And then finally, this is appealable. This is appealable under Revised Code Chapter 2506. If someone disagrees with a board decision, they can then appeal to the Franklin County Court of Common Pleas, or frankly, the Delaware or Union County, if the property so happens to fall within those counties. One thing we very much encourage all board members to do is to avoid ex parte communications. Essentially, don't take it upon yourself to talk to an applicant outside of the meeting. And the reason for that is very simple. Whenever one of our decisions is appealed, we want to have the most clean, clear, and concise record possible. And what we don't want that cluttered up with outside interactions. We want everything to happen on the record for us. As I mentioned, the decisions should be tied to the standards applicable to the application. The example we have here on the slide before you applies to what you heard tonight in both cases, and that is a non-use variance. So what we do is we look at the rule, which is set out in the code under 153.231. That lists several different factors that you are legally bound to review. Your decision has to be based on the application of the facts as presented to you, to those criteria. And so as you walk through tonight, I think it's very helpful. You looked at the first factor of H2A, and it says, do the facts demonstrate the findings required? And then 2 of the 4 in H2B. And again, I think staff does a fantastic job of providing those to you. So, you certainly are permitted to make your decisions not based on their recommendation, but they do a good job of setting forth what you need to consider. And then finally, you make the vote on it as to how the question should be answered. I'll pause there before we jump into open meetings. Just hop in if you have any questions about the administrative quasi-judicial process. Hearing none, excellent. Ohio's sunshine laws apply to public meetings and public records. And open meetings are required of public bodies, such as the Board of Zoning Appeals. And we are required to take all official action and conduct all deliberations upon official business only in open meetings. So we can't make any decisions about an application before us unless we are in an open meeting and on the record. Pre-COVID, all of these meetings had to be in person, but the Ohio legislature and the governor signed a law last year permitting virtual meetings through the remainder of the state of emergency. And I wouldn't be surprised to see some flexibility in that even after the state of emergency. The meeting itself is defined as any prearranged discussion of the public business of the public body by a majority of its members. So if there are 2 of you out having coffee and you talk about an application, that doesn't raise any open meeting concerns. There are 4 of you, that's a problem. So we'd want to just take care that message exchanges over the internet, and that includes your personal email and on social media pages and text messages, do not become meetings. So for example, you wouldn't want to have a group chat with every member of the board, which I'm certain you don't, but that's just an easy way to avoid having a meeting without realizing you're having a meeting. We maintain minutes of any regular and special meetings of public bodies. Those are then posted on the website for public inspection. Turning to public records, we define a record as any document, device, or item, regardless of physical characteristic, created or received by or coming under the jurisdiction of any public office, which serve to document the organization, functions, policies, decisions, procedures, operations, or other activities of the office. And as you can tell, that is a broad definition. And as the name suggests of the Ohio Sunshine Laws, we want to err on the side of producing public records and keeping all public records. An example of something that is not a public record would be if someone emailed someone else on the board if they wanted to go get lunch. That would not document any public business. A public record is any record kept by any public office. And again, that includes members of a Board of Zoning Appeals. Kept by means a record that is actually in existence and in the possession of the public office or person responsible for the public records. As I have listed here, some examples of records that are not kept by a public office are those not yet in existence. So if we were to have a conversation about a finding of fact that we were going to put out, that would not be a record. A record that has been disposed of lawfully. I heard some conversation earlier tonight about retention policies. The city has a extensive and thorough policy on when the law permits us to dispose of old records. And then finally, oral communications that are not recorded. Certainly tonight, what we're talking about, the video would become a public record because it's being recorded. But if we talked on the phone, that would not be a public record. Again, as I mentioned, the records are analyzed based on their content rather than their storage medium. So don't fall into the trap of thinking that it has to be on paper. An electronic record, an email or a text is treated no differently than a tangible record. One word of caution, an email from a private account can be subject to the Public Records Act if the content of the email documented the organization, its functions, policies, or procedures. So if you are looking to, to avoid public records laws by sending an email from a private cell phone or a private email, that won't work, which is generally a good thing. Just one note, personal notes are not records if they meet 3 criteria. 1, if they're kept as personal papers. 2, if they're kept for your own convenience. And 3, they're not accessible to other members. So for instance, tonight when you were hearing an appeal, if you were taking notes of that and it's just served to sort of organize your thoughts and you don't plan on circulating that, that is not a record. You can feel free to throw that in the garbage after we log off tonight. Finally, we just wrap up with general public ethics law. This applies to all public officials and employees in the state, including members of a public board. That's anyone who is elected or appointed to an office of a public agency or who is employed by a public agency. So that falls to elected members of council, city staff members, and appointed members of any of the boards or commissions of the city. Initially, the ethics laws are enforced by the Ohio Ethics Commission. Upon request, they can open an investigation. They'll look into the circumstances, and if they find it necessary to move forward, they can initiate a formal ethics investigation and complaint, and then it can go from there depending on how egregious the violation is. The main concern we have with the ethics law is always conflicts of interest. And so I would just encourage you as a board member to first of all reach out to the law department if anything even feels remotely like a conflict of interest to you. If you have a family member or a business associate with a direct and definite financial benefit or detriment, perhaps come on the agenda before you. I would again encourage you to reach out to us. We'll be happy to walk you through whether or not a conflict exists. Typically, the Ethics Commission defines family as sort of a limited sphere, a spouse, a child, a sibling, or a parent. But as I said, feel free to reach out if you have something a little more on the outskirts. And finally, business associates, that would mean your business partner, perhaps the office or the employer where you work has an application come before us here. We'd want to know about that and have you recuse yourself. So again, as I said, just let us know. The important thing to remember is that having a conflict of interest is not illegal, but participating in the matter despite the conflict in any way is the illegal part. So we have no problem with any of you recusing yourself at any time. Trouble happens when you stick it out and discuss it. And as we listed there, these are some ways that you can participate. It isn't limited to a direct vote on the matter. We would want you to not participate in any discussion. We would not want you to advise other members of the board about maybe some of the scenario that you understand a little better. Certainly not lobbying any other members. Basically, no action on the matter. In a virtual meeting, we'd encourage you to shut off your camera and mute yourself during the consideration of this. During an in-person meeting, hopefully soon, we'd have you leave the room on it. So again, if something pops up and you feel uncomfortable, don't hesitate to let us know. I'll circulate this PowerPoint to all of you so you have multiple points of contact. The other big ethics concern, of course, is sort of the obvious one. We don't want any public employee or official soliciting or accepting anything of value. Public officials and employees may not solicit or accept anything of value that could have a, quote, substantial and improper influence on your duties, your performance of your duties for the city. Anything of value, means what it says: gifts, travel expenses, employment, meals, golf trips. If it's something tangible that you can receive a benefit from, it probably falls into that category. And again, the considerations are substantial value and an improper source. And, in a everyday sense of the word, a cup of coffee probably doesn't fall under substantial value. But as a member of a public board, I would encourage all of you to consider it that way. If anyone's coming before us on business, we just want the absolute clear line between our consideration and our interactions with those folks. And that's all I had tonight. I know I sort of ran through that, but as I said, the board is very well handled and very well served by staff. But please feel free to let me know if we have any questions.
None for me. Appreciate the refresher, Jesse.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So Robin, there's going to be a test we're going to send out just for you tomorrow. If you can.
Excellent. I'll ace it. As long as I'm allowed to use PowerPoint.
I just wanted to highlight.
Go ahead, Tammy. Yes.
I'm sorry. I just want to highlight the importance of checking your city email account. I know that seems tedious because it's just one more account you have to keep track of. But quite frankly, it really has prevented us from going to people's personal accounts and going through emails that we obviously don't want to go through.
Totally guilty of that. Sorry.
No. I mean, you don't. Again,
Zach, I give Zach this. I'm so guilty of that. Sorry.
No, I mean, again, we're busy. We have things to do. Checking multiple accounts is awkward. But it really, if there is a public records request, it really helps you. As well as occasionally, the city sends out some benefits for board members, and they'll only communicate it through your Dublin account. So we don't want you to miss out on anything, and we definitely don't want to be looking at computers. So it's a win-win for everyone.
That's a good, especially within the week leading up to the meeting is probably the most ideal time to look. Although I do find some of the things that Jennifer is sending out with regard to what the other boards are doing in the city council is very helpful as well. So do we have any communications, Tammy, Zach, on anything otherwise?
Zach, I'm going to jump in. We just wanted to, in terms of what the board had provided to us in terms of what could be helpful for your analysis, we really tried to incorporate that in the last report that we did. We tried to really be specific about our analysis as well as history and pictures, but literally, if there's anything that we can do to ensure that you have the information that you need, we'll do. So feedback is welcome. In the upcoming months, Zach, I believe the 17th, we've slated for Greg Dale is a consultant that we've worked with that does specific training for chair and vice chair. So Jason and Joe, you're you're on board, and it will be working with the other chair and vice chairs of the other boards and commissions. So it's a great presentation. We've had him come a couple times, and so we are looking forward to having him present before our boards and commissions.
You say that's May 17?
Yes.
That Monday?
Yes. Tentatively, I will
fine.
say we're confirming, but yeah, we'd love to have you guys. We're really trying to reach out to the boards and commissions for additional training. So if you think of opportunities, we are all ears, and we'll make sure you get whatever training that you need.
And Tammy, and I was going to mention something with regard to, I know we had obviously those conversations about some of the things that the board wanted for future meetings. And I'll tell you that the materials I felt were the additional materials upon a request were very beneficial. I appreciated it. It provided a lot more color, especially with the history, some of the similar cases that we may find similar, and the photos, and it just felt more comprehensive and gave us a better, I guess, a better ability to limit so many questions. I think it was very helpful. So,
Yeah, the pictures in
Wait.
particular, thanks for bringing that up, Jason, because I wanted to say the pictures of the property that we wouldn't otherwise, if we actually drove into their house
Right.
and parked and went up to the house. It's really tough to see, particularly with this second case today, the real challenging topography of that. And so those pictures were really, really great. Those the extra pictures you threw in there.
Great.
do we
Just
know
let
if
us
we
know what we
have?
can. Sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Tammy.
No, I was just saying, anything that you need. We love feedback because we're, sometimes we're a dog chasing our tail. We're providing information and we don't know if it's beneficial. So we want to make sure it's what you need.
Do we know if we have an application for May 27 yet?
I can speak to this. Currently, the meeting is pending. We do have one potential application. However, it is not formally submitted. So we do have one inquiry. However, I cannot commit or
Okay.
deny that we will have this meeting next month. So we'll definitely keep you posted.
Thank you. Do we have
So
anything
Zach, that
else?
was I can't
Anybody?
confirm or deny.
We may have something.
I haven't gotten to say that in a while, so I was really excited to bust it out for this meeting.
Well, good. So this was a good meeting. I appreciate everybody's time. And if we don't have anything else, I think we're adjourned. Is there anything else? Anybody have anything?
Thanks,
Okay,
everybody.
so
I'm
Say
excited. to be on-
congratulations. I just wanted to say congratulations, Jason, and of course, Robin. Welcome to the group.
Thanks. Excited to be
Thank
here.
you. So if there's nothing else, then we may see you May 17 or May 27. And if there's no application, then we won't. So this meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.